Hey, everybody. Gail Kraft here from the Empowering Process podcast. And I have with me someone that I think is going to be very interesting with what we have to talk about. And it's Angie Carlson. Now, Angie is going to talk to us about a near-death experience and how that has changed her life in a way that has benefited so many people. And I want to thank you for joining me, Angie.
Oh my gosh, Gail, thank you so much. It's an honor to be here. I'm excited to share and encourage your audience.
It's going to be so amazing. So I am going to every once in a while go on mute because I'm coughing and I don't want to cough in your face. So let's talk a little bit about what happened that put you into that situation of a near-death experience to begin with.
Well, sure. Back in 2017, I had just noticed that I was just starting to feel off. Like I would have times I would be fine, and then I would just be going and puking for like 20 minutes straight. And then 5 minutes when I was done, it was like nothing had happened. I could sit and eat a meal and keep it down. Like it was just weird. And so I went to the doctor and they're like, you got cyclic vomiting syndrome, take some Zofran, you'll be fine. And so for about 6 months, I was okay. And then I just started to have symptoms like back pain. Well, I have severe scoliosis. I was near the age that they said it'd be acting up. So they're like, it's your scoliosis. And they had me go to physical therapy. What I didn't know was going on, and this was uncovered over a 2 year period after multiple ER trips, was that my gallbladder was actually failing in my body. And it did not get caught until I was in organ shutdown and septic. So a very standard medical condition
Right?
got completely missed.
So so you ended up going through the emergency room?
Well, I went to the emergency room Labor Day weekend of 2019. They stabilized me. They told me to follow with my primary. So Labor Day, she was off. Tuesday, she was off. So I couldn't get in until like Wednesday. And then she got me, like, she wasn't supposed to send me for an ultrasound, but she did anyway. And thank God she did, because as soon as I had that ultrasound, the tech reacted. And that's when I knew something was really off because I know they are trained to not react. And so
Correct.
they reacted. It had to be something really, really bad. And when we left that ultrasound, they said, well, don't go more than 5 miles from the hospital. And my husband and I looked at each other. We're like, well, that's weird. Like, why are they like, we've never been told that, but we lived within 5 miles of the hospital. So we went home. I don't even think we were home for more than 10 minutes that we got a call back. And they're like, you have a doctor's appointment in 10 minutes and surgery's double booked and you need to get here. And we're like, God, this must be really bad if surgery's double booked and we have an appointment in 10 minutes. Like, and the doctor went in and he, as soon as he saw us, I was super dehydrated because for the 5 days leading up to this, I couldn't eat, couldn't drink, because I couldn't keep anything down. A sip of water to my lips was throwing up. Like, I mean, my skin was turning a shade of green. Like, this girl was in rough shape. And he's like, I need to operate on you now, but if I operate on you now, you're going to be dead. And so I was taken to the hospital to get hydrated for 24 hours. And no one ever told me with alarms or anything going off, but I just remember having this experience that I don't care. I mean, you could give me $10 million to denounce it and I won't, because it was that real to me. Like it, and I know it was real because just how it handled and how it was and just very quick. I mean, it's one of those moments I will never forget. And it changed the course of my entire life.
So exactly what was going on because I love my near-death experience, folks.
Yeah, so I remember being in the hospital, but like I said, no one ever came to me and told me there were alarms off or machines off. So I just don't know if I was like right before the point that happened or what. But I just remember going and I was like standing in like this really dark black room, but it was a gorgeous shade of black that we don't ever have here on this planet. Like I've never seen this shade of black in my life. And off in the very, very far distance was like the brightest white, gorgeous shade of white. Never seen it here. And two of my relatives that had passed away were just standing like by me in the black, and they were very quiet. And the first one I knew was my grandma, who passed in 2002. The second one took me a lot longer to figure out because it was a cousin of mine who died when I was 10, and I always saw him sick. I never saw him healthy. And so it took me probably 8 months to put together he was the second person. But I'm like, I know this person's like related to me. I know I hung out with him. Like I just, like I said, I was 10, so my memory was was a little foggy, but those two of them just stood there and they just looked very peaceful, never said anything, never did anything, but they just stood there. And then that was back. But I just remember that I have never felt that level of peace anywhere on this earth. It was the most comforting and strangest thing, all at the exact same time.
Isn't it just lovely?
It
Right?
it it is like I used to be terrified of death, and I'm no longer scared of death. Like, not that I want it to happen anytime soon,
Right?
but I'm no
Right?
longer scared of it.
Right. And I think that is that is a gift, right? To have been able to have had this experience that brings you a perspective on life that others don't have.
Right, because before it happened, my brain was just going to all the regrets of, Angie, you could have done what you wanted to do and help so many people, and you were too chicken. And just variations of that sentence were going through my head. I'm like, I can't eat, I can't drink. I remember the sun was shining out the window, and I was so miserable, I didn't even care. I was 39 years old. And I even remember, like, I don't care that I'm 39. If the rest of my life is going to be like this and be this miserable, I don't want to be here. And it's not because I was suicidal by any means. It just was, I was just at that level of misery. So, like, I have so much more empathy for people, especially the older people who are just like, man, I'm just done and I want to go. I totally get why they're feeling that way. And it makes sense. But some of those things don't make sense until you've actually experienced it.
To me, it's it's going home.
Mhm.
It's the feeling of going home. And not that, like you said, not that we want to leave this experience that we're in, but when it's time, then it's, just a gentle bye-bye experience, hello home, right? So they hydrate you, they bring you into surgery, you have this experience, and you come out of it, and now what?
Well, I come out of it and focus on my recovery first for a couple weeks. And I had made a 10-year commitment to stay at my job, which that was really dumb. But I'm one that honors my word. So at that point I knew my last day was going to be, I set my last day back in 2019 for a date in 2022. Didn't say a word to anybody outside my husband for like 14 months, including my coworkers, that, or 16 months, I was going to do this. I just really kept it on the download. Only I said something when I was asked about it, and that kind of forced my hand. But by that point, I just knew, like, I need to get into the work I'm doing now. And it still took me 14 months after that experience to take the first step of signing up for my certification. So it wasn't like a quick process. I just had decided that I have no idea what this process looks like. I have no idea what this is going to happen. I just know I need to do this, and I'm heading that direction, which was so weird for me because I am like type A strategy checklist for my life, hit the goals or I fail. Like, I mean, and for me to just lean into, like, I'm doing this. I have no idea what it is. I have no idea what it looks like. I mean, my husband was just kind of like, are you okay? Like, are you really okay? Because it was just a different experience, but that's just how much it changed me.
Right? Right. And so what is it that you do now for people?
Yeah. So what I do now for people is I'm a financial coach. I help people specifically with their money communication. So we focus on them experiencing less stress in their relationship and more money in the bank using my proven agree and achieve method.
And so what does that mean?
So what that means is we take your finances and we look at a point of agreement. So you and your spouse may agree that your finances aren't working. You may agree that we hate everything about our finances, and no matter what, we're keeping the kids' sports. So the fact that we have agreement on we're keeping the kids' sports is enough financial agreement for me to start building a plan based on your values for the day to day, so that you can start reaching your goals, like paying off debt, saving more, having money to put in retirement, paying off your house, doing these things that you dream of, being incredibly generous. And when we build a plan based on what you agree on, there's a part of your agreement that reflects what you value. And when you build a plan based on what you value, it's a plan you're going to follow, instead of just like, well, I need to do this budget because someone on the internet told me to check that box.
Right. Right. So I love that. So values is so very important. Excuse me for a minute. For me, so I did some work a long time ago on identifying my core values, right? What are my intrinsic core values? They're immutable, they're throughout time. And when I make choices based on that, they're always the right choice for me, right? So, how do you help people determine what's important to them?
So how I help them determine what's important to them is I start by asking questions about their money, their experiences, their conversations. And typically when something comes up that's important to them, they tend to shy away from it because they've either gone after something that was important to them and they failed, or the reason it became so important to them is from through some type of experience, but they're so embarrassed to discuss the experience because they've done it before, they've been judged, they've been shamed. And the last thing they want to do now is tell their person this story and now be judged by someone else. But by not talking about it, their spouse is putting it through their filter of their experience, and that they're just not, things just aren't lining up. Well, of course, you're going to have tension and conflict when each one of you has your own filter without giving the other one context. Because most people have a very valid rational thinking process for getting to the decisions that they make, even though me looking on the outside, I'm clueless. But once I sit down and they start talking through their experience, their decision making makes so much sense.
Right, because it's important to them.
Well, yeah. And I'm also sitting here going, if I had lived the experience that they lived, I would probably draw that same conclusion.
Right.
And that was like probably one of the most mind blowing things that has opened as a result of that work. But I wouldn't have gotten this, like, be able to see all this wonderful ways to blow my mind without the near death experience, because that's what opened me to be like not near as judgmental, just not, thinking, oh, well, they could just do this or my solution's the best. Like, and I used to be very much like that. And now it's just like, I never know the whole story. Like, and even if I do think I know the whole story, I still want to take the approach that I don't, because I'm going to lose the curiosity. I'm going to lose that data. Well, not that a human story is a data, but I mean, instead of making it based on like a money story, okay, what's going on in your life? Because once we look at adjusting the life and how you look at it, that's when the money starts to change. That's when the budget that you've been trying to make perfect based on math, like, because when you look at the budget based on math, there's only so many things you have in it. So
Right.
you can't keep doing the math different ways. We got to look at what we're throwing in and out of it to really change it. And when your mind is so closed off that this is how it has to be, I'm never changing this, you're just going to keep getting the results that you're getting. So it does take a while to open the perspectives, which is why I use my content to do that, to start planting the seeds of this is how you can look at it differently, or this is a perspective your spouse may have that if you hear it, you're human, you love your spouse, you're going to say, honey, I'm so sorry. And you're also going to realize, oh, that conversation you're having about a budget that you desperately want, your spouse has a very valid reason, as strong as yours, that they vowed they'll never do it again. But yet, if you two never talk about those experiences and keep trying to strong arm each other with the budget, at best, you're going to have a relationship full of fights. And at worst, you're going to have your divorce.
Right. 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 Excuse me, one second. So, so I love that approach because how you do one thing is how you do everything, right? And so money is just a reflection of how you do everything else in your life. And so by helping people with their relationship to money, you're actually helping them with their relationship to themselves and their relationship to each other.
Yeah, absolutely. Because that all just naturally shifts as a result of the work. And when you're starting with me, it's hard to think about making sacrifices, because for years or even decades, you're like, why am I going to sacrifice stuff and not win and never get it back? And you know
Right.
what? No one is going to sacrifice in that scenario. But if you start working with me and 3 or 4 months in, you start seeing all these incredible financial wins. Now you're willing to make some sacrifices to get to your result quicker, because now you also have a plan to get what you sacrificed for a season back.
Right.
And it totally changes the work. And that's one of the big things I see is it's not that people aren't willing to do the work. It's just, one, they're terrified they're not going to get the result because they've been trying on their own for years or decades and it hasn't
Right.
happened. So why trust
Right.
this time? And two, they just don't want to sacrifice things to just put them in a black hole.
Yeah. So, and they don't understand that money is just a reflection. It's just energy. It's not real, right?
With the
It's
budget
not.
it seems very real. Yeah, I know with the budget it seems very real because you have it written down, you hold it in your hand, and so the reality is when you hold the money in the hand, you hold stuff that's real. And so there's a lot of those thought processes there too. And my goal isn't to necessarily shift that type of thought process. For some that comes with it, but it's just more of the awareness of the money, like your security cannot be found in your money. And there's plenty of world events that demonstrate that right now. So when you try to put your security in something that's not meant to be a secure thing, and money is not meant to be a secure thing, you are going to feel like it's never enough. You are going to feel like, what else can I do? Because you're basically using money as the house of cards foundation to build your identity and your personal security. When strong wind or tide coming in, your whole foundation's gone.
And I love that with that comment about building your identity based on money, because I think that is, at least in the US, how we've been raised to believe is truth.
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Yeah,
you see the ones that have money doing well off, and social media has made that so much worse because you don't even have to have money to look really good. And I know I've made judgments on people based on their social media, and it's even like, oh, this follower that I really judge for doing the things they do, oh my gosh, they're debt free and they're killing it. And these other people, I'm like, wow, their pictures are amazing. I'd love to have their life. Man, their life isn't as great as they're showing everybody.
right.
So that
And
has been so eye opening to really be like, people are only showing like the there are some only showing the highlight reel of their life, but there's also some downplaying the success they have in their life because they're scared that others are going to be jealous or people are going to ask them for money or other things. So so the interesting thing on this equation is there's a lot of holding back on both sides, but it's just for very different reasons.
yes. And meanwhile, people believe that this is truth, that this is what life is all about. And what I've been witnessing lately is that there is a deep feeling of disconnection and loneliness like never before.
Oh, 110%. I feel it too with my clients. And I'm feeling my clients starting to ask more of the questions, especially with being after COVID and all, of like, they're starting to have fears of, I've been so focused on saving this money, but what if I die at 58 and I don't even get to enjoy what I've done? Like they're starting to have some thoughts because they watched someone pass during COVID or something else not go to plan. And now they're wondering, like, they know that they need to start living their life a little bit more, but they're also so scared of they're, like very clearly and adequately prepared, but they're still really scared of, well, I just need to keep doing that one more, that one more, that one more. And it's like, that's as unhealthy in my opinion as someone who is living their life on credit cards and taking debt and trying to pay off debt with debt. Neither one serves you well. And that's why as you're on the financial journey, it's the amount of money that you make and bring into your life is limited by one, the thoughts that you have about it, and two, the actions you take on those thoughts. Because if we have the belief that I'm always bad with money, you're going to look for every single way that you're bad with money.
Right.
If you even change that belief a little bit just to say, I know that it's possible to be good with money because I know friend A, B, and C has done it. I wonder, is it possible for me to be good with money? And even though, like, with that thought, you're not fully believing being good with money is for you, just shifting it to thinking that it's a possibility is like, maybe I can take this little step. Maybe I can do this. And it's these little steps that seem so insignificant in the beginning are actually what build the foundation. Because if you can save, $5, you can save 10. If you can save 10, you can save 25. If you can save 25, you can save 50. And when we work with me, we accelerate that process. So it's thousands.
Right.
And
Right. So
yeah.
I have a sister who used to, and she still says that she could squeeze a nickel so tight she could make the buffalo cry. right? So she has no concern about her ability to manage the money that she has.
And it makes sense that she doesn't have that concern with squeezing it so tight. It would just also be there's a source of pride with being able to do that. And I get it. I have things I want to feel pride about too. And do I want to have that pride as a result of other things I've suppressed that maybe I haven't shared? So it's one thing to do that strategy to take a fabulous vacation every year because you value that vacation and that's the strategy you chosen to get there. That that is what works for you. And if you're getting the results you want, keep doing it.
Right?
For me, having to live that tight to get what I want would suffocate me.
Um, she doesn't live that tightly, but she is very good with money. I have another friend who sees money as a game.
Mhm.
She's like, I'll just see, you know, what I can do with groceries this month to get the groceries I want at the price that I want. Right? And
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean, when I think about the various people that I've had experiences with in my life and their various approaches to
Mhm.
using money, not letting money use them.
Yeah. And that's the thing is we have to money needs a direction. We are the ones that give that money direction. And if you're sitting here going, I don't give my money direction, I'm also going to venture a guess that you probably have no idea where your money's going
Right.
because money
Right.
will find a direction if it's not guided properly. And that direction is probably not going to be one that you like.
Well, not one that you choose for sure because you're not being conscious and aware.
Right.
This is so fascinating. So we never know what happens with a trauma or an event like in your case, a near death experience, or how it changes our life and our perspective
Mhm.
and what we do as a result. But it's
Mhm.
always to benefit others,
Mhm.
always to benefit others. And I think that is really an important facet to remember. If what you're doing, first of all, is something that is you're passionate about, right? And it has a result of elevating someone else, however you determine what that is, then there's, my favorite line, success is inevitable, right? Because your focus and your energy is in that direction.
Absolutely. Success is success is inevitable as long as you don't do two things. One, if you never start, you're not going to be successful. Two, if you quit, you're not going to be successful. And those are really the two things that hold you back. Like the progress doesn't have to be perfect. Like for the love of God, do not make your eating out budget zero. That's not going to happen. And then you're going to get more stuck, more frustrated, and you're going to continue the spiral that you want to get out of. And there's a humanness part to your finances that most people overlook because they just want to check the boxes. And while I'm a strategy girl, I love checking some boxes from time to time. It's not a sustainable plan because let's say I try to be perfect. The world isn't perfect. My car isn't perfect. My kids and my husband aren't perfect. There's always going to be something that doesn't go to the plan. I mean, money is kind of like building a house. The very first blueprint you builder gives you is not going to be exactly what your final house looks like. You may want to add a bedroom, make the bathroom bigger. Who knows? But we don't yell at the builder for not drawing the diagram right on the first time, but yet we'll yell at ourselves for not following the first budget. That's a disconnect, big time.
Yes, I have a person that I interviewed who helps women write their book. And she says, make it as messy as you want. The first draft is always messy.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to fix it, just put it out there because the second draft will not be as messy. And the third draft will be even better,
Right.
right? But just get going,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And I think that's the story of life is just get going.
Yeah. And that's a
Yeah.
great story to apply it to the money because the assumption is as soon as I start working on my money, I'm going to start feeling the relief. You may
No,
not feel that relief day 1, day 2, day 60, day 120, because it takes some time for all these changes that you're learning to get baked into you, into your nervous system, into your thought process. And for you to start catching like, oh, that's the thing that I'm doing. That doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
And if it does, it may not serve you well anyway, because you may make a move and pay all your stuff off, and then it's going to be right back 2 or 3 years later, and it's probably going to be worse because you had that clean sweep and you're like, oh, problem solved. Don't think about any other deeper parts that are really contributing to that. So they remain unchecked. And then you're scratching your head going, how did I get back here?
Right. 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 And that's the roller coaster finances that a lot of people run into.
Right. And roller coasters, I mean, they have exciting, but the highs are high and the lows are low. And honestly, like, I want my money to be boring, because the more
Right.
boring my money is, the more fun I get to have in my life. And
Right.
I can choose the fun. Not that,
That's called consistency,
right.
right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Love it.
And consistency is not perfection. Consistency is not everything going right. Consistency is, I'm going to show up, I'm going to make the decisions that need to be made, and I'm going to make them repeatedly. Sometimes your consistency can result in amazing progress very quickly. Sometimes your consistency is like, man, I feel like I haven't moved in 3 months. But
Right.
it doesn't mean that things aren't working. You just can't see it yet.
I love it. I love it. So, Angie, if someone wanted to learn more about what you do and get in touch with you, how would they do that?
So they can get in touch with me through my social media channels on Facebook and Instagram, and that handle is at Finance Coach AC. I am also on Alignable as Carlson Financial Coaching LLC. I do have a LinkedIn page, or you can reach out to me by phone. That is 563-580-2874.
And all of this stuff will be in the notes, guys. So if you missed it, just go to the notes and you'll be able to get in touch with Angie. Angie, thank you so much for taking the time to be with me today and to share how you have turned your life around by getting out of corporate, a job that you weren't happy with, and serving others because of a near-death experience. It's a beautiful story. Thank you for sharing it with us.
Gosh, Gail, thank you for the opportunity to share it. I
It
appreciate it.
was great. And so everybody, thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. If this interests you, please give us a thumbs up. If you have a question, put it in the comments. We'll get back to you. If you know someone who could benefit from this conversation, do share it out to them. And as always, do subscribe so that you know when the next episode is coming up. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to the Empowering Process podcast. Be sure to visit Gail at gailcraft.com to learn more about how she serves thought leaders, entrepreneurs, and goal seekers. And remember, if you like this broadcast, be sure to share and subscribe so you don't miss an episode.